Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast on the Class. Breakfast on the Class today and this entire week is dedicated by the Torah Center Silver donors, the friends from Birkat Yitzchak, Mexico, in loving memory, Linishmat Leti Bat Ventura Vivian. For Refuah Shema Avchana Bat Semefega and Eliyahu Shomazar Fortuné. The entire year of Breakfast on the Class has been dedicated by Ruth or Fali Bat Adela, sponsored and dedicated by her family. Let us begin. Our Torah tells us that after spending all of his time in prison and hoping that there would be a way out, Yosef finally sees his ticket and he punches it. What is his ticket? He gives the interpretation to the butler, and he tells him, when you go back to Pharaoh, remember me. But our rabbis explain that he says the words remember 2 times, indicating that there was too much of an investment in the person. It wasn't just his level of hishtadlut, of effort, but rather that he believed that he'd get saved or forgotten based on this guy. And Hashem says, you're bigger than that, your Emunah should be stronger than that, and therefore I'm going to ensure, maybe we should just close that door if that's okay. And we should ensure, in order to ensure that that's the case, I'm going to eliminate that from the possibility. Now take a listen to how this plays out. Fascinating. Velo zachar Sarah mashkim et Yosef vayishkacheu, and the Sarah mashkim did not remember Yosef and he forgot him. Ask the Chachamim, what does it mean he did not forget him? He did not remember him and he forgot him. Is that what happens with like men on their wife's birthday? You know, not only did I not remember, I also forgot. Right? Or I didn't forget honey, I just didn't remember. Is that what we're talking about? What's the point? The Midrash explains something unbelievable. It's not that he didn't remember. It's not lo zachar. He zachar. And he zachar and zachar and zachar. He was tying the little bow on his finger. He was, leaving messages on his refrigerator. But every tie that he tied, to remind himself, the Navi would come and untie. Every post-it note that he put on the refrigerator, the Malach would come and make sure that it got blown away. My friends, Velo zachar Sarah mashkim et Yosef vayishkacheu. God made sure that did not happen. Now, I want to just share something that I think is very powerful. Most of us think that if I have a certain level of emunah, belief in Hashem, let's say I have faith that Hashem provides parnasah. So we all know that just because you believe that Hashem is going to bring you your livelihood, it doesn't mean that you don't go to work, right? Everybody knows that. Just because you believe Rofei kol basar mafli la'asot, just because Hashem heals people from their sickness, doesn't mean you don't go to the doctor. In this world, a person has to be able to supplement, if you will, their emunah with ishtadlut. Now, when I talk about supplement, I don't mean that you need some of this and you need some of that for the outcome, but rather that God says, in your natural world, I want you to avail yourself of the natural processes that I put in that world. And if you don't do that, I won't help you. But what people don't realize is that when they're engaged in hishtadlut, that is also from Hashem. It's not like Hashem helps me and I help myself. No. All of what happens to you is in the hands of God. To understand this, a person needs to realize that oftentimes their hishtadlut and their outcome is paradoxical in nature. So they'll sit and put a tremendous amount of effort into something. And what will come from that huge effort? Nothing. And then there'll be something that they put the tiniest amount of effort. They made one comment to one person. Next thing you know, there's a deal being done. Wild. So you see that it's not commensurate with the amount of hishtadlut that you'll find success. And in fact, sometimes a person will put in a tremendous amount of effort in one area. And where will the hatzlacha come from? A completely different area. So ishtadlut means that a person is not allowed to sit back and say, God, you do it all for me. A person has to go out of their way to go and do something. And in their hishtadlut, in their efforts, does God's bracha land. That's what God's bracha, so to speak, can bring blessing to. Not even necessarily in that area, but brings blessing in his life. What are we looking at? Yosef puts in all of his eggs into the Sara Mashkim basket. But actually what happens? Nothing. But when the time came, when Yosef no more needed to be, get this extra time added to his sentence, in the immediate moment that his salvation was destined to come, Paro Cholem, suddenly some random guy in some random place is granted or gifted a dream from God himself. And God makes sure that not one person in his surroundings is able to convince him or give him a comfort level that he's able to respond to. So Paro is desperate for this help. And of course, there's only one person who could give him that help. My friends, a lot of times a person will, they'll buy something in the world of commerce, and they have an intention to sell it, and suddenly that option, that offer, it dries up. What do you know? You know, you ordered sandals and whatever, and the season passed by the time it arrived. You think to yourself, Khalas, can't believe it, I missed it. But all of a sudden, you have a year with the most mild winter we've ever experienced in my memory.
It's not over.
I didn't see it. It's not over till the fat lady sings. Or as my friend who used to tell people that they weren't allowed to go because they couldn't hear women sing, he would say, you're not over until the fat lady sings. Either way, my friends, listen to this, because this to me is unbelievable. All of a sudden, you have all these sandals, and it's unseasonably warm. Now Walmart is scrambling for sandals. And everyone who planned to get the sandals at the right time, they have no more stock. So now they're willing to pay double, triple, quadruple because there's no supply in the market. And all of a sudden you realize that your delayed sandals was the best thing that ever could have happened. Sometimes what's missing in a person's bracha is not their prayer. It's not their effort. It's just not the right time yet. And don't lose your hope or lose your nerve. Just say to yourself, not yet. Maybe soon that beracha is destined to come. My friends, let me add one little point. So most of us think to ourselves that we have to put in ishtadlut, we have to put in effort. And you know what? How much effort do you have to put in? Enough. What does enough mean? Enough means that if your emunah level is here, so it's like a seesaw. Your hishtadlut level is here. If your emunah level is here, your hishtadlut level needs to be much higher. So people think, okay, what's the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario is if I didn't figure out exactly how much hishtadlut to emunah ratio I need, I might wind up doing so much extra hishtadlut that I didn't need to do. I might wind up wasting my time, wasting my efforts. I could have used that time instead to learn Gemara on Sunday morning 10:15, Tuesday and Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. I might have had extra time to do this or to do that, and now I wasted that time. What we're learning from Yosef is that when a person overdoes the hishtadlut ratio, not only does it not bring your parnasah faster and you wasted your time, but it pushes the beracha further away. Isn't that wild? Why? Because the excess hishtadlut, by definition, causes that seesaw a even further lowering of the emunah. If I need to work this hard, it means that I have that much less belief that this belongs to God. I'm killing myself. I don't need to be here 10 hours before and 14 hours after everybody. I don't need to do that. I don't need to be a person that doesn't see their wife and children. Well, this is what it takes. I don't think that that's what it takes. When a person overdoes the hishtadlut ratio, what they're saying is there's no other way other than this. What you see from Yosef is to overdo it cost him 2 extra years. Miketz yamim. Now in Yosef, God was so careful because God treats the great tzaddikim, the judgment is so fine. Why? Because the tzaddik's level of kiyum mitzvot is so high. It's kind of like saying, CEO comes to the board and he says, listen, I want a raise. And they say, really, why? And he says, because I got here every day on time and I left every day on time. They tell him, listen, that's our conversation with the janitor. The CEO doesn't get a raise because he came on time. The CEO gets a raise if he outperformed, in beating expectations or beating, earnings. You're past that already. A tzaddik has no test whether or not he's going to pray. A tzaddik has no test whether or not he's keeping Shabbat. God's measurement with him is how strict was he with the highest form of strictness on Shabbat. God's question for him was not did he pray, but did his concentration waver one bit during the entire hour and 20 minutes that it took him to pray his shacharit. My friends, God is midakdek im tzadikim kechut hase'ara, like a thickness of a hair. Why? Not because he's being stricter with them, but because their performance, their KPIs are here. Now my friends, Yosef HaSadik, for the extra word, remember me, pays 2 years. You want to see a man who's learned his lesson? Yomer Pharaoh el Yosef. He gives him a nice haircut. They put on some nice clothes. It was no striped jacket, but they put on some nice clothes. They bring Pharaoh in. They bring Yosef in. This is his big chance, his big moment. Yomer Pharaoh el Yosef. Chalom chalamti. Poter en oto. I cannot find anyone to be poter. My dream. I need a dream interpreter. Ani shamati alecha. I heard about you. Lemor, saying tishma halom liftor oto. That when you listen to a dream, you're able to interpret it. That's what Pharaoh says to Yosef. If Pharaoh said that to me, I heard you're a guy. I heard you're the poter. I'm like, I'm the poter? Forget about it. I'm from the town of Pitora. Those of you who remember that town, right? Now, my friends, what's Yosef's response? I want to read it to you. Vayan Yosef et Paro. And Yosef says to Paro, Lemor, bil'adai, Elohim ya'aneh, et shalom Paro. Me? I can't do nothing. It is above me. God will answer your peace. God will answer. And as Rashi explains, the wisdom is not mine. God will put an answer in my mouth. L'shlom Paro. Yosef looks at this and he says, I got to tell you, Paro, it's not me. How could Yosef say that to Paro? Wasn't he risking Paro say, it's not you? Back to prison. I want you to understand what's going on over here. This is a moment. Yosef remembers the 2 times he said, remember me. That cost him 2 more years. What does Yosef say when Pharaoh says, I hear you're the guy? What does Yosef say? I'm not the guy. I'm not the guy. Because he's not afraid of Pharaoh, or maybe said more accurately, he's less afraid of Pharaoh than he is of God. In Sefer Shemot, we read, "Vatir'ena hamiyaledot et Elokim." The midwives were commanded by Pharaoh, as soon as a baby boy comes out, kill the baby boy. But the midwives, Vatir'ena hamiyaledot, more afraid than they were of Pharaoh, they were afraid of God. My friends, that's my question. Bil Adai. This is not me. This is Hashem's work. Yosef learns his lesson. How many times does it take Yosef to learn this lesson? Once. Now, it's true. He has a 2-year, he has a 2-year degree in this, in the College of Bor, okay? Which ironically is a much better college than most of the colleges in America right now. There were very little protests in Yosef's Bor, but either way. My friends, it takes Yosef one time to learn this lesson. How many times do we have to learn this lesson? That when we're afraid of other things, we're overdoing the hishtadlut. We're overdoing the effort. And when you overdo the effort, what happens? The beracha is pushed further away. So it's hard to get it exactly right. But my question always is, do you overestimate? When you have a question, there's a margin of error. Do you overestimate or underestimate? It's a great question to ask yourself. Now, I remember once learning a great musar from a bottle of medicine. Okay? Not many people learn lessons from drugs. I do. Either way, on the bottle of medicine, it says, if you missed one pill, big letters, do not take 2 pills. You're supposed to take one every day. If you miss one, don't go. If you're not sure, do not take an extra pill. I learned from the bottle of drugs that some things, when you're not sure, don't overestimate how much you should take. Underestimate. Playing it safe means doing less, not doing more. So to understand how much Emunah do I have, how much hishtadlut do I have, you're not sure. It's a big question. By the way, and no one can answer this question for you other than you yourself. But my friends, what are we learning from Yosef? Underestimate, don't overestimate. You know what he could have said to Pharaoh? He could have said to Pharaoh, what you heard about me is true. I am the dream interpreter, but Hashem helps me. That's not what he says. He starts with saying, Bil Adai. This has nothing to do with me. Elohim yaneh et shlo baro. Now, I don't know if you've had many conversations with Elohim. Maybe you don't have his phone number. He happens to have my phone number. So sometimes he calls me to tell me stuff about other people, right? But Yosef starts with Bil Adai. He overcorrects on the Emunah. He doesn't overcorrect on the Hishtadlut. My friends, I want to share with you something unbelievable. Last night, I had a zechut to go speak at a conference. A conference is the wrong word. A gathering. Gathering is the wrong word. A siyum is the wrong word. Carnival is the wrong word. Sweepstakes is the wrong word. I don't even know what to call what I was at last night. There's too many words. Celebration, I don't know. Also the wrong word. Farbringen. Also the wrong word. I remember there was a rabbi who, I don't know why, he thought this word was an English word. But it wasn't an English word. But it was such a good word that he was making up. He was from Israel. And he always used to say it. And it gave me such pleasure to hear. Not because he was getting it wrong, but because I was like, if we could insert a word into the dictionary, that would be such a good word to insert. He used to say, we have such a beautiful gatheration. I love that word. I don't know why. I love it, but every time he would say it, it would fill me with such joy. So maybe last night could be called a gatheration, a gathering of the nation. I don't know. It's a gathering and a celebration. I don't know. Either way. Where was I? I was at a place. I was at a siyum for Masechet Baba Batra of the Daf Yomi, of the group of people who are studying to learn with Rabbi Eli Stefansky. It's the biggest group, the biggest shiur in the world. I think they said that there were 35,000 people now that are studying together in this group. And on top of the 35,000, I think they may have just got, in the last week, another 6,000 people to sign up. Some fellow said that the first 250 people to sign up to Merkaz Daf Yomi, I'm giving you all the details here, the first 250 people to sign up, if they complete Masechet Sanhedrin, he's giving them $1,000. And anyone else past the first 250 gets $500 for finishing a Masechet. I don't know how much that's going to cost the guy, okay? But my friend, they're starting Masechet Sanhedrin, okay? And they made this siyum. And it was something from another planet. It really was. To see everyone dancing together, to see people that never saw each other. They only do this online. His shiur is in Israel. There's maybe 70, 80 people that go to the shiur in Israel. But it's broadcast all over. He does it in Hebrew and in English. There's a Hebrew shiur and an English shiur. It's just insanity. And the dancing and the joy and how he's their Rebbe, and many of them never met him until last night. I mean, they see him every day. He's extraordinary. People kept asking, what's the secret? Why is it such a success? And lots of different people have lots of different interpretations. But my friends, I think that there's something here that's incredible. I think the reason why it's so successful is because of the anava, of the humility that Rabbi Stefansky has. Just to give you an example, I'm in the middle of speaking at his event with the 1,000 people that are there, or however many, with however many tens of thousands going to watch as well. And I'm doing my speech. And I put my water cup on the stender. And the stender, as you know, is tilted as stenders tend to be. Out of 1,000 people, Rabbi Eli Stefansky gets out of his chair, comes to tell me that there's a shelf underneath I could put the water on. When a person has that anava, he understands it's not about him. He understands, bil'adai, it's God. And I said, interestingly enough, that the gematria of Eliyahu Stefansky is 421, which is the exact gematria of only one pasuk in the whole Torah. V'noach matzachen be'enei Amonai. My friends, I want you to understand one thing. When a person lives with anava like that, with humility like that, where everything is about the job, the mission, the Torah, Hashem, not about me. It's about the Torah. It's about God. It's about Am Yisrael. Then unbelievable things can happen. Unbelievable beracha can happen. Beracha that can take a person who's a slave at the bottom of a pit, and in 1 second, a meteoric rise. He doesn't work his way up through the ranks. He doesn't get promoted from, prisoner to warden, warden to police chief, right? In Egypt, police chief was a desirable job. In New York City, police chiefs are resigning. But either way, right? Move from police chief to the mayor, mayor to the governor, governor to the senator, senator to Mabarif, Mabarif to Mabarif plus, till finally President of the United States, Ya'ani. Right? You think that that's how it works. And that is how it works in the world. But God's not in the world. What's the reward for Yosef? Underestimating how much, relying on God completely, saying to the man who told him to punch his ticket, he just needs to say that it's because of him. What's his response? No. Meteoric rise. He goes from slave to king in a day.
Thinness of the hair.
Slave to king in a day. Opposite journey of a chatan after he gets married. Either way. Sorry, sometimes. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. My friends. That's what I witnessed last night. I witnessed something which is above nature. Miraculous. How many berachot would we have if we just got out of the way? Chasidim, Sephardim, more religious, less religious. Israeli, Haredi, it's unbelievable. Every kind of Jew sitting there learning together, they're one big chabura. Where does that exist? You know, the Gemara says that when the Jewish people do something extraordinary, what does God say? On this it says, Yisrael asher becha et par. This is the Jewish nation that I'm proud of. I think maybe that's what MDY stands for. My dear Yisrael. Yisrael asher becha et par. When we get ourselves out of the way, it's just incredible. MDY is Merkaz Daf Yomi. That's the name of this shiur. Are you thinking it was Magen David Yeshiva, weren't you? Every Syrian is like, Magen David Yeshiva? Look, under Rabbi Mansour's leadership, very soon, Magen David Yeshiva might very well become Merkaz Daf Yomi. Yishtabach Shemo, how much Torah the rabbi is bringing into the school. He's really been, it's created a revolution in Magen David, Baruch Hashem. But my friends, that's what I was looking at last night. Miracle that happens because a person is willing to be the guy that when someone else is speaking, go and be like the little Eved. Unbelievable. To turn yourself into, a stagehand when you're the reason why everyone's here. That anava, that bil adai, can do anything, can do everything. Be'ezat Hashem, we should be zocheh to see in our lives this idea, this concept. Now there's a piece of advice I give people, and I'm going to end with this. A lot of times people will tell me, I'm struggling with shidduchim. What should I do? I'm struggling with parnasa. What should I do? I'm struggling with chinuch. What should I do? And sometimes the answer is shidduchim. Go get a book on dating. Struggling with shalom bayit, get a book on shalom bayit. Struggling with chinuch, raising your children, get a book on raising children. But sometimes, none of those things is the problem. You just need to double down and get a book on Emunah. The shalom bayit issues that are happening because, you know what? I'll just give you an example for this. In Pele Yoetz, Rabbi Elazar Papo, he writes hundreds of years ago that a person wants shalom bayit, he shouldn't be so careful to always be checking the bills. My, how little has changed. Except now, instead of going to check the bills, your bills ring on your phone. Oh, what'd she spend? Where'd she go? A person is nervous, so nervous about money, that they're fighting with their wife over parnasah, do they need a Shalom Bayit book? Or do they need an Emunah book? She deserves that. She needs to be treated that way. You signed on the ketubah that you're going to clothe her. No, I mean for men, clothing someone means, go to the thrift shop, yallah. For women, it's not the same thing. Emunah. Want to raise your children. How much easier would chinuch be if we believed in Hashem's plan? How much of our chinuch is really built on anxiety, is built on ego? I'll never forget a conversation I had with a parent. We were talking together and I was telling them, look, I think the kid needs extra help. I think he might have some learning difficulties. He might have some special needs, shall we say. And the parent said, I'll never forget this. No child mine. Shema Yisrael. I'm so sorry. I thought this conversation was about the kid. I did not realize that we were talking about you and your honor. Let's start the conversation again and I'll change all of my opinions. Because I did not realize that where he went to school was about you. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's start again. Obviously, you want him to skip school and go straight to university. Because what child of yours needs lower school? They should just skip all the grades. What child of mine? If you lived with Emunah, you wouldn't worry what people are going to say. You wouldn't worry about reputation. How am I going to marry off my other kids if people find out there's something wrong with any one of my kids? Emunah is how. My friends, this idea, bil adai, the letters of bil adai, the Ibn Ezra says is made up of two words. And I don't think the Ibn Ezra means the two words that I thought of when I read that. I think he means Bal Adai. If you look at the interpretations on Ibn Ezra, that's how they seem to be understanding the Ibn Ezra. But I would say something else. The word Bil Adai is the same letters as two other words. Eved Li. You're my servant. You're here to do what I asked of you in this world. When a person works for a company, there's something called a business charge card. Who pays for the business lunch? Who pays for the printer paper? Who pays for the taxis? But if you turn to your boss and say, I don't work for you. Oh, you work for yourself. Give me my card back. Use your own card. And your own card, it's got spending limits. If a person lives Eved Li, you're a servant to me, to Hashem, slave to king in a day. Hashem should bless us to be elevated through that realization, through that emunah, to the highest heights. And the problems we have, which seem to be unsolvable, will not only be solved, but will be solved and then some, taking us to places that even we could not imagine for ourselves. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen. Rabbi Chananya ben Akasha omer,